Maria Sklodowska was born in Russian-occupied Warsaw in 1867. The city was stifled by the oppressive regime, where Polish culture and language were strictly forbidden in public life. This backdrop of national suppression framed her earliest years, instilling a deep, lifelong commitment to Polish liberation and intellectual freedom. Maria, the youngest of 5 children, grew up in an intellectual but financially strained household. Her father, Władysław, a mathematics and physics teacher, secretly fostered Polish culture, while her mother, Bronislawa, ran a girls' boarding school, emphasizing rigorous education and learning. The heavy hand of Russian authority was evident when laboratory instruction was removed from Polish schools, designed to suppress scientific progress. Young Maria witnessed the constant suspicion and surveillance, knowing an imprudent word could endanger her entire family. 2 years later, in 1878, when Maria was 10, her beloved mother, Bronislawa, died after a long battle with tuberculosis. The dual losses of her sister and mother inflicted deep emotional scars that Marie carried throughout her life, hardening her resolve. The family's financial situation deteriorated after Władysław lost his teaching post due to his patriotic Polish sentiments. Despite having to take in boarders, Władysław maintained an intellectual atmosphere, filling their home with literature and a love of knowledge for his children. Maria proved to be an exceptionally gifted student, attending Jadwiga Sikorska's boarding school. She exhibited a remarkable intellect and prodigious memory, diligently ranking at the top of her class throughout her schooling, driven by an insatiable thirst for knowledge. In 1883, at age 15, Maria graduated from the Russian lycée with a gold medal, marking the end of her formal secondary education. However, the intensity of her studies, combined with emotional trauma, led to a period of severe depression or nervous breakdown. Following graduation, Maria took nearly a year of mandatory rest in the countryside to recover her physical and mental health. This forced respite provided a moment of calm before facing the harsh reality of limitations placed upon women in Poland. Upon her return to Warsaw, Maria faced the crushing injustice that universities in occupied Poland were strictly closed to women, denying her any official path to higher scientific education based purely on her gender. Determined to continue learning, Maria joined the Flying University, an underground, clandestine educational network. Classes, constantly shifting locations to evade Russian police, offered forbidden subjects like Polish history, progressive politics, and sciences. Maria actively participated in this revolutionary movement, secretly reading Polish literature to working women and teaching illiterate peasants to read and write. These illegal activities demonstrated her early commitment to intellectual and social liberation. Recognizing that true scientific training required studies abroad, Maria and her sister Branya dreamed of attending the Sorbonne in Paris, yet their family's abject poverty made the goal seem insurmountable without intervention. The two sisters formed a powerful pact. Maria, the younger, would work first to finance Branya's medical studies in Paris. Once Branya was established, she would, in turn, fund Maria's scientific career, defining years of sacrifice. At age 17, Maria began working as a private tutor for wealthy Warsaw families. After 2 years of slow progress, she sought a more lucrative position to accelerate her sister's studies and her own eventual departure. For the next 3 years, Maria worked as a well-paid governess for the wealthy Zorowski family in the Polish countryside. This isolated posting required her to educate the factory owners' children in mathematics and science. During her tenure, Maria experienced a painful, unhappy love affair with the eldest Żurawski son, which was forbidden by his parents due to Maria's poverty and lower social standing as a mere governess, leaving her hurt and angry. Despite the emotional turmoil and isolation, Maria used her free hours to devour books and began focusing intensely on mathematics and physics. She excelled in these subjects, confirming her strong vocational inclination towards science. A chemist at the beet sugar factory secretly provided Maria with basic laboratory lessons, giving her crucial hands-on experience in experimental science, deepening her resolve to pursue advanced scientific research. In 1889, Marie returned to Warsaw and continued her studies at the Flying University. She gained vital practical experience working evenings and weekends in the laboratory of the Museum of Industry and Agriculture, confirming her scientific vocation. In March 1890, Branja finally invited Maria to join her in Paris. But Maria hesitated, traumatized by years of sacrifice and fearing leaving her father. Her heart broke at the thought of wasting her abilities in Poland. Finally, in autumn 1891, the 24-year-old Maria Sklodowska made the momentous decision to chase her scientific dream. She undertook an arduous journey to Paris, traveling fourth class with meager food and a folding chair. Arriving at the Gare du Nord in October 1891, Maria was instantly immersed in the bustling French capital. She soon enrolled at the Sorbonne's Faculty of Science, adopting the French name Marie on her university enrollment form. Marie initially lived briefly with Branja and her husband, but needing total focus, she soon moved to a modest, tiny sixth-floor garret in the Latin Quarter to be closer to her university, embracing isolation. Marie threw herself into her studies with extraordinary intensity, battling her lack of preparatory education compared to French students. She lived in extreme poverty, subsisting on simple bread and tea in her unheated room. So dedicated was Marie to her work that she often forgot to eat or failed to bring in coal, leading to moments where she fainted from sheer cold and hunger, testing the limits of her endurance for the sake of science. Lacking confidence, Marie chose to repeat her first year of coursework, a decision that cemented her knowledge. This extra preparation paid off spectacularly in her subsequent examinations. In July 1893, Marie graduated first in her class with a licentiateship in physics, confirming her intellectual brilliance. She immediately set her sights on achieving further academic credentials. A year later, in 1894, Marie earned her second degree, a licentiateship in mathematical sciences, graduating third in her class, establishing herself as a formidable dual threat in the rigorous sciences. The crucial turning point came in spring 1894, when Polish physicist Józef Wierusz-Kowalski introduced Marie to Pierre Curie, France's leading expert on magnetism, to help her find laboratory space for her commissioned research on steel. Pierre Curie, 8 years Marie's senior, was already an established physicist known for co-discovering piezoelectricity and developing the precision Curie electrometer, an instrument that would become fundamental to Marie's future work. Marie began working in Pierre's laboratory at the School of Physics. The 35-year-old physicist was instantly captivated by the 27-year-old Polish student's singular focus, brilliance, and fierce dedication to scientific truth. Their shared passion for science quickly blossomed into deep mutual affection. They found their dreams, patriotic, humanitarian, and scientific, aligned perfectly, drawing them closer together personally and professionally. Pierre proposed marriage to Marie in 1894, but she initially hesitated, still feeling a strong moral obligation and desire to return to Poland to contribute to her oppressed homeland if a scientific position were possible. Pierre declared his deep commitment, stating he was willing to move to Poland with her, even if it meant sacrificing his career to teach French, solidifying his devotion and helping Marie decide her future. Marie returned to Warsaw during the summer break to visit her family and test the professional waters. She was brutally denied a position at Krakow University due to blatant academic sexism, clarifying that her future lay in Paris. Pierre's persistent, heartfelt letters convinced Marie to return to Paris to pursue a PhD, knowing that together they could achieve greater scientific goals than apart. At Marie's insistence, Pierre finalized his own research on magnetism, receiving his doctorate in March 1895 and earning a promotion to professor just months before their wedding. On July 25, 1895, Maria Sklodowska and Pierre Curie married in a simple civil ceremony in Show. Marie, rejecting tradition, wore a dark blue outfit that would later serve practically as her laboratory wear. Their marriage was a genuine partnership of intellectual and romantic equals, bound by mutual love and a shared scientific mission. They began their married life in a modest 3-room apartment, their expenses dictated by Pierre's modest salary. In 1896, French physicist Henri Becquerel discovered that uranium spontaneously emitted mysterious, penetrating rays. This phenomenon, which lacked clear explanation, provided Marie with the perfect, intriguing topic for her doctoral thesis. Marie, now pregnant with her first child, decided to systematically investigate whether other elements shared uranium's mysterious property of spontaneous radiation emission, a rigorous task requiring unprecedented precision. On September 12, 1897, Marie and Pierre welcomed their first daughter, Irene. Despite the demands of new motherhood, Marie pursued her groundbreaking research with relentless dedication, using Pierre's sensitive electrometer. Marie confirmed that the element thorium also emitted rays. Crucially, while testing pitchblende, a uranium ore, she found it was 4 times more radioactive than its pure uranium content could account for. Marie concluded that the pitchblende must contain 1 or more additional highly radioactive elements that had yet to be discovered. This revolutionary insight challenged existing scientific dogma and required immediate investigation. Pierre, convinced of the importance of Marie's finding, set aside his own crystal research and joined her mission completely. They began working as a unified team, pioneering the use of radiation measurements to trace minute amounts of unknown elements. The Curies employed demanding chemical analysis procedures, separating substances and meticulously tracking radioactivity in the resulting fractions using the electrometer, treating the radiation intensity as their key guide. With pitchblende residue imported from Bohemia, they processed massive quantities. Their efforts quickly revealed 2 highly radioactive fractions, one containing bismuth and the other containing barium. On July 18, 1898, the Curies announced the discovery of the first new element in the bismuth fraction. They named it polonium, a profound nod to Marie's native land, Poland, symbolizing her enduring patriotic ties. On December 26, 1898, the Curies published their second major finding, a new element discovered in the barium fraction. They named this substance radium, derived from the Latin word for ray, noting its astonishing radioactivity. The dual discovery that two completely dissimilar elements possessed intense radioactivity was revolutionary, fundamentally changing the understanding of matter and laying the groundwork for a new branch of science, which Marie coined radioactivity. The next monumental task began isolating enough pure radium to unequivocally prove its existence, determine its atomic weight, and secure its placement in the periodic table, a task requiring heroic labor. The Curies were granted the use of a leaky, unventilated, and dilapidated shed in the EMPCI courtyard, a primitive, cold space described as a cross between a stable and a potato cellar to conduct their arduous chemical processing. Marie began the backbreaking, large-scale fractional crystallization process. She constantly stirred massive vats of boiling pitch-blende residue with an iron rod, working with 20 kilograms of material at a time in the stifling shed. This complex, exhausting chemical labor required thousands of precise crystallizations and purifications over 4 years, demanding incredible physical stamina from Marie, all while juggling teaching duties and family life. The Curies continued supporting themselves through teaching, with Marie securing a part-time position at the École Normale Supérieure de Sèvres for girls in 1900, ensuring the family remained financially solvent. In December 1904, Marie gave birth to their second daughter, Ève. Marie was now balancing her role as a mother of 2 young children with the demands of revolutionary, isolating scientific research in hazardous conditions. Finally, in 1902, Marie succeeded. She produced 1 decigram of pure radium chloride. She successfully measured its atomic weight, 225, definitively proving that radium was a unique, new element for the world. The radium salts exhibited miraculous qualities. They glowed faintly in the dark, were warm to the touch, and emitted an apparently inexhaustible supply of energy, captivating the scientific world. On June 25, 1903, Marie successfully defended her doctoral thesis, Research on Radioactive Substances, before the Sorbonne Committee. Her work was declared the greatest scientific contribution ever made in a doctoral thesis. Recognition followed rapidly. In 1903, the Nobel Committee initially planned to exclude Marie, awarding the Physics Prize only to Pierre Curie and Henri Becquerel for radiation phenomena. Pierre, informed of the injustice, strongly lobbied the committee, insisting he would not accept the award unless Marie was recognized as an equal partner in the research, forcing them to include her. Marie Curie, Pierre Curie, and Henri Becquerel were jointly awarded the 1903 Nobel Prize in Physics. Marie became the first woman in history to win a Nobel Prize, shattering a major gender barrier. Exhausted and suffering from early effects of radiation exposure, the Curies were too ill to travel to Stockholm immediately, finally delivering their Nobel acceptance lecture in 1905. Pierre's health was visibly declining. His fingers were scarred and inflamed from handling the radium, and both Curies suffered from debilitating fatigue, unaware that their groundbreaking material was slowly poisoning them. In 1904, Pierre was appointed professor of physics at the Sorbonne, a long overdue honor, and Marie was named his laboratory chief, providing a more stable professional foundation. Catastrophe struck on April 19, 1906. Pierre Curie, crossing a wet Rue Dauphine, slipped and fell under a heavy, horse-drawn wagon loaded with military uniforms, sustaining a fatal skull fracture instantly. Marie was devastated by the sudden, brutal loss of her partner, collaborator, and best friend. Crushed by grief, she relied on Pierre's remembered words, She must continue their work, even without him. Just weeks after Pierre's death, the University of Paris offered his chair to Marie. She accepted, determined to create a world-class laboratory as a lasting tribute to their shared scientific mission. On November 5, 1906, Marie Curie made history as the first woman ever to teach at the Sorbonne. She began her inaugural lecture precisely where Pierre had left off, symbolizing the continuity of their work. Marie threw herself into raising Irene, 8, and Eve, 18 months, alone, dedicatedly homeschooling them with a rotating group of eminent scientists, ensuring their intellectual development in the absence of her husband. Marie proved to be a protective and devoted mother, prioritizing her daughter's health and engaging them in rigorous physical activities like hiking and acrobatics, despite her intense grief and professional demands. Marie's scientific determination remained unwavering. In 1909, the University of Paris and Institut Pasteur agreed to build the Institut du Radium, a state-of-the-art research facility dedicated to radioactivity studies, to be directed by Marie. After years of grieving, Marie found emotional companionship with Paul Langevin, a brilliant physicist and former student of Pierre. Their bond provided intellectual and emotional light amid her persistent loneliness. In 1911, their private romantic relationship became a public scandal when Langevin's unhappy wife, Jean, obtained and leaked intimate letters to the French press, creating a national sensation. The press coverage was virulent and xenophobic. Marie was attacked as the stranger who came from Poland, a corrupt thief, and a homebreaker in extreme right-wing newspapers, fueling widespread public hatred. The intense hostility culminated when rioters, incited by the scandalous articles, stoned Marie's house in Sceaux, smashing windows and furniture, forcing her to flee for physical safety. Émile Borel, vice principal of the École Normale Supérieure, gave Marie refuge in his apartment. He courageously refused the threat of dismissal from the Minister of Education to expel her, standing firm against the rabble. In the midst of this professional and personal nightmare, Marie received staggering news. She had been awarded the 1911 Nobel Prize in Chemistry for isolating radium and discovering polonium. The Nobel Committee, fearing a public scandal, sent Marie a telegram suggesting she should not attend the ceremony. Marie, however, refused to be intimidated by moral policing. Pale but resolute, Marie traveled to Stockholm in December 1911 and accepted her second Nobel Prize with dignity, making her the first person ever to win 2 Nobel Prizes in 2 different sciences. Albert Einstein, a staunch admirer, urged Marie to ignore the hogwash fabricated by the press, assuring her that fame had not corrupted her, a powerful statement of support from a peer. When World War I erupted in August 1914, Marie immediately focused on protecting the precious gram of radium she had isolated, transporting it personally in a heavy lead pot to Bordeaux for safekeeping. Returning to Paris, Marie quickly realized that mobile X-ray units were desperately needed on the battlefield to save soldiers' lives by locating shrapnel and bullets deep within their bodies. Named director of the Red Cross Radiology Service, Marie launched a campaign using her fame to secure donations of cars, generators, and X-ray equipment, even contributing her own Nobel Prize funds to the war effort. Automobile shops transformed donated vehicles into the now famous Petites Curies, Little Curies, mobile radiology installations ready for deployment to the front lines. Though she had lectured on X-rays, Marie lacked practical experience. She gave herself intensive crash courses in anatomy, X-ray operation, and auto mechanics, determined to lead by example and drive the units herself. Marie trained her 17-year-old daughter, Irene, as her first radiological assistant. Mother and daughter made their initial trip to the battlefront in autumn 1914, accompanying a military doctor. Marie trained about 150 women as X-ray technicians, overcoming bureaucratic resistance that initially forbade women drivers from accessing the front lines, pioneering the role of women in battlefield medicine. Over the course of the war, the mobile Petites Curies and stationary centers established by Marie treated an estimated 1 million wounded French soldiers, saving countless limbs and lives through faster, better diagnoses. Following the armistice in November 1918, Marie proudly drove a Petite Curie through the jubilant crowds of Paris, celebrating her adopted nation's peace and her critical contribution to the war effort. Post-war, Marie returned to the newly completed Radium Institute, where she directed the Curie Laboratory. She and Dr. Rigaud worked to link research and therapeutic applications of radiation. In 1920, Marie and Rigaud established the Curie Foundation to fund the Institute's activities, leading to the 1922 opening of the first outpatient radiography unit for cancer treatment, developing the research care continuum model. Despite discovering the element, by 1920, Marie lacked sufficient radium for her research, finding the price of 1 gram, $100,000, prohibitively high due to her principled refusal to patent her discovery. American journalist Missy Maloney launched the Marie Curie Radium Fund, successfully raising the necessary $100,000 from American women for Marie to purchase her own gram of radium. In May 1921, Marie, frail but dedicated, toured the United States with her daughters. The climax came when President Harding presented her with a golden key to the casket containing the precious gram of radium at the White House. Marie made a second U.S. fundraising trip in 1929. President Hoover presented her with a check to establish the Polish Radium Institute in Warsaw, ensuring her native country also benefited from her discoveries. Throughout the late 1920s and early 1930s, Marie's health seriously deteriorated. Decades of working unprotected with radioactive materials caused radiation-related ailments, including severe cataracts and tinnitus. In 1925, Marie was questioned about the adverse effects of radium during investigations into the Radium Girls, young women poisoned by painting luminous dials, highlighting the emerging lethal dangers of her discovery. By the early 1930s, Marie had developed aplastic anemia, a fatal blood condition caused directly by prolonged radiation exposure. Yet she continued working in her lab until shortly before her death. Maria Sklodowska Curie died on July 4, 1934, at age 66, at a sanatorium in San Chelemos. Her death, officially attributed to aplastic anemia, marked the end of an extraordinary life dedicated to science. Marie's body was so radioactive that she had to be buried in a lead-lined coffin, first interred in Sceaux beside Pierre. Her remains testified to the invisible, pervasive hazard of the elements she discovered. In 1995, 61 years after her death, Marie Curie became the first woman honored for her own merits in the Pantheon in Paris. The exhumation revealed low contamination levels, protected by her pragmatic choice of a lead-lined burial container. Marie's legacy expanded when her daughter, Irene Joliot-Curie, followed her path, continuing research at the Radium Institute with her husband, Frédéric Joliot, carrying on the family tradition of scientific excellence.